speakers. So coming up next, very topical, very timely session. So for those of you out there that haven't heard of the new mail privacy protection solution coming from Apple in the next iOS and Mac OS updates, this session is going to be one that you're going to want to definitely stick around for and listen to. So we have 4 great speakers. We are just transitioning to bring them all up to the event. I see we have our first one. And we are just bringing everyone up. So we'll just be a moment as we transition speakers. So here we go. I think that should be everyone now. There we go. I will turn over controls now to, I'm not sure who's going to be presenting, but I will definitely turn it over to the group. So we have Garin Hobbs is going to be moderating the session today. He's the SVP, Client Strategy and Evangelism for Zembula. We have Stephanie Griffith, founder of emailpreview.io. Scott Cohen, Senior Marketing Manager with Purple. And Megan, I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to apologize in advance. So hopefully I get it close. Megan Boshuyzen? No?
No.
Damn, I practiced in everything. I saw you send it to me.
Right?
I saw you send it to me phonetically. Apologies for that. I practiced. I tried. I did. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to take over and wow us with what's coming in Apple iOS 15.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And actually, I'd like to start by thanking Canadian Email Summit. It's been an amazing event, a great 2 days of content and thought leadership, and we're all very happy and proud to be a part of that. So we're talking today about the impact of iOS 15 on email. Many of you may have attended the Apple event yesterday. Not a whole lot of clarity came from that specifically, other than the release date. So we're now anticipating that for next Monday, September 15th. Now, the upcoming release of Apple iOS 15 has been anticipated for some months now. And the event's created a lot of uncertainty amongst email marketers and all folks who are tangential to our practice and our community. Now, this is a move that supports this larger and increasing sentiment towards user privacy. We've seen some of the advents of that, IDFA, CCCP, et cetera, et cetera. And so Apple's move in this direction probably isn't very surprising for many. And frankly, we might be able to see within very short order some of the major other ISP venues increasing as well. So Gmail, Yahoo, et cetera, may be following suit. So what is this actually going to be doing? What's the impact for email? In a nutshell here, Apple's essentially going to be pre-opening any email read on the Apple email app, the native Apple Mail app. This is going to be limiting the functionality of real-time content, since again, that real-time content will render at time of pre-open by Apple. It's also going to block marketers from tracking IP, location by IP and genuine email opens by customers. So that's obviously going to impact things like opens tracking KPIs. So we're going to be a bit of a shift in the C state here. There's a lot to unpack with this topic. And so to help us unpack the impacts and implications of this evolution, we've assembled a panel of distinguished experts to discuss, dissect, and share our perspectives. So I know Matthew took us through intros, appreciate that. I did see that a few other folks have recently joined, so let's start with a brief reintroduction, starting with my newest favorite thought leader, Stephanie Griffith, email and SMS marketing. Yes?
Oh, I said thanks, Garin.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, sorry. It's we all have our professional crushes. This is one of mine. Stephanie's the founder of Email Preview IO, a very cool tool. If you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, I encourage you to. From the brand side, we're joined by someone I've been lucky enough to know for a dozen years or so, Scott Cohen, Senior Email Marketing Manager at Purple. And since much of the burden of these changes will fall on development and creative teams, we wanted to make sure that we got that perspective as well. So to give us the developer's POV is Megan Boshuyzen, pretty sure I did that one right, Senior Email Developer at Pathwire. a highly talented, deeply experienced group. I think I've had the opportunity to work with most of you in the past. So let me start by asking everyone's favorite perennial question. Is email dead? If open tracking is dead, does that mean email is as well? I can see everyone kind of bopping around, eager to attack this. So who's going to tear into it first? Stephanie, let's have it.
I've got the shirt. Email's not dead. It's not going anywhere. And actually, I think this question, I know we had touched on it. And we're like, this is a hilarious question. It's a hilarious question to anyone that works in email. But especially, I think this week. So I have one word to answer that question, and it's MailChimp. If there's a $12 billion acquisition in our industry, I think that really should be kind of the be-all end-all of this longstanding argument. If that doesn't seal the deal on email, as an essential channel, I don't know what would. So no, email is definitely not dead. It's going to continue to thrive, but we really need to adapt to the needs and wants of our subscribers and customers. They're asking for more privacy, and so we need to respect that.
I don't know, maybe Intuit will kill email. Maybe that'll be the email killer finally. They spent $12 billion to take out a whole channel. I mean, Garin, you said I've been doing this for 12 years. What was it? Twitter was supposed to kill email. Facebook email was a thing for what, like 3 months, 4 months, something like that. That was supposed to kill email. Who remembers Google Wave? That was a thing that was supposed to kill email. It's Slack. I think everything is, it's going to kill email. Okay, sure.
Yet here we are.
Yet here we are, $12 billion later, that none of it goes into my pocket. So
it's a great point. I think honestly, to combine both your perspectives, I mean, the more we see the fracturing of the engagement landscape, the more we see new channels merge in, I think the more viable email continues to become. It's still the most direct. It's still the absolute most measurable. And at least currently, it still returns the highest ROI. I think the famous sort of metric out there is anywhere between $40 to $44 for every dollar spent on emails is the typical ROI. So it's really difficult to stack that against other channels. I know a mature display ad channel usually brings in around 18% return. So about half of what most folks see from email. So I definitely tend to agree with both of you, and not just because I spent 22 years of a career in this industry that I've grown to absolutely love, right? Megan, would love to hear your thoughts from the developer's point of view. Is email dead, right? I mean, what does this mean coming from folks who sit on your side of the line?
Yeah, so email is most certainly not dead. As people may or may not know, email is read in a variety of places, from your computer, on the go. We're going to be hearing, emails spoken out loud through different smart devices eventually, in our watches and all that jazz. So we need somebody out there to be able to wrangle all these different things together and to serve all of our subscribers really well. So we just have to keep an eye on it and just pivot with whatever others in the industry throw at us.
Agreed. And I think that's a perfect segue to kind of the next question here. So what types of campaigns or content are most likely to be affected by iOS 15? We talked about IP location, we've talked about opens, and we've talked about real-time content. But what are the types of campaigns and content that are most likely to be impacted on this, the things that are probably most commonly run by most brands and marketers out there? And what do you all feel the impact these changes will have on the importance of email as a channel? Is that likely to change? Is that likely to shift? And how do we best prepare for it? I know it was a tripartite question there, but I think all those things kind of intersect very neatly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, publishers and the folks that are just sending emails where all the content is in the email, they're in trouble, because they're the ones that rely. If you're relying on open rate as a real metric for your conversions, you're in trouble. I mean, we just ran no
right
as the only metric, exactly.
Yeah,
it's we've been running the litmus tracking for the past month or so just to see what percentage of our database is on Apple Mail. It's about 40%. So if you just take 40% of your list and go, well, opens are going to be 100% for those folks, then open is out of the water. I mean, it's just so. I think that there are going to be a lot of companies who do that are going to have to shift entirely how they do their programs to, I hate to say gate content, but they're going to start gating content and then relying on their website to carry the rest of it, which is frankly what they should be doing anyway, but they're going to be forced into it now.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think expanding on that in more of a general sense, for sure, re-engagement programs. So, how we've been defining engagement and largely tying that back specifically to who's opened an email in the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or, however broadly those segments are defined. Anything that is specifically being driven only back to the open is definitely in trouble. But also campaigns that I think that rely on things that are a little bit more gimmicky or, drive that kind of fear of missing out. I do think there's still certainly a place for real-time content, but what I think we're going to see folks have to move away from is only saying, you have 33 and a half seconds left to shop this sale, because we're not going to be able to tie things back that same way in terms of serving up real-time content. Garin, I know your company is doing a lot of great work to try to redefine how that experience, comes to life, because there still is a time and a place for it. But really moving away largely from those gimmicky tactics and trying to find much more authentic ways to excite our subscribers and keep them engaged well beyond the open.
You know what I love about hearing both answers, and I definitely want to hear from Megan next, but I think for me, the common theme and what we heard from both Scott and from Stephanie is you hear all of the humdrum that's sort of been buzzing around our industry, anticipating this release, and all of it's been, well, rather negatively slanted. This is a threat. This is something we have to prepare for. When I listen to the two of you, frankly, I hear nothing but opportunity. Can you kind of expand on that a bit more for us?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that a little bit. So I think this is really the nudge that we need to stop relying on singular metrics to define the success of emails and email programs as a whole. I know we've talked a lot about this. There's been some great Twitter Spaces conversations with email geeks at large about why are we actually sending emails. And I think this is such a great opportunity to dramatically redefine that, but ultimately go back to basics and just better define why are we sending emails. I think we as marketers try to be good at that when we're usually the ones to say, why are we sending this, and not just, check something off of a campaign checklist or a marketing checklist, but really moving beyond opens as that metric of success and getting crystal clear on why are we sending something, and ultimately what are we asking our customers and our subscribers to do. So if it's a newsletter and you want them to read that content, give them some snippets, make it really compelling, give them just the headline, but then drive them to the website where that longer form content lives. Don't just shove it in the newsletter. If it's an event registration or, something like downloading a content piece, same thing. Get them to the website, make it really crystal clear on what we're asking them to do. So it's super convenient and easy for that to be accomplished. And then define the success metric around that action. So redefining what a conversion is, like get crystal clear on what it actually is and make it super easy for folks to achieve that.
I love that perspective. Stephanie, Scott, I saw a lot of head nodding on your side.
I just think that the cheat codes are gone now. Let's just call it that. Your cheat codes are gone. Like, oh, we have great opens. We have this and that. No, you can't rely on that anymore. But that really, Stephanie, to your point, the fundamentals haven't changed. We still have to use gathering data, which gets a little harder because you're not using that. And of course, if you want to have browse behavior, that may disappear anytime in the next 3 years whenever Google decides to actually pull out the rug. Right. But we still need to be relevant with messaging. We still need to be targeting. We still need to be segmenting. We still need to do all those, what I call fundamental things in the program that, yes, are easier said than done. But if open is your only metric to driving things, it's a problem. So on the flip side, I think marketers need to be, there's going to be more noise because the non-sophisticated people who are still using that metric and either are not plugged in or don't care, and there are plenty of them, are just going to go, oh my God, we reactivated 40% of our list. This is amazing. We're just going to start mailing. And then, so you have to think about, like, it's already hard to break through the inbox. It's going to be harder.
100%.
I also think this is from the design side a great opportunity for the email designers and developers out there to really start getting into those weeds with your email marketing specialists and strategists, because it's real easy to get siloed and not think about the larger things that Stephanie and Scott are talking about. And I think as designers and developers, we do need to think about it and need to think about how what we do help get people through the emails to whatever the endpoint is. So talk to your strategists, talk to people on the website to see what the end goal is, and then think about your role and how what you do affects all that and helps your users get there the easiest way possible.
Yeah.
I love that, Megan. As a person who earns his living and day-to-day as a strategist, thank you for the advocacy for strategy. But you know, I can't help but agree with all of you. I was hoping for a little dissent here, but we're all coming to consensus. So it's probably a positive thing.
I have a little bit of a hot take on the design side. This came up in a recent conversation, and Megan, I'd love if you have a POV on this, but I feel like we'll probably be a little bit aligned. What I don't want to see as a marketer, and I'm already starting to see this in some campaigns, and especially on the newsletter front, is the inclusion of like the thumbs up, thumbs down emoji for like, did you find this email helpful? We're trying to force the click just to make ourselves feel better. Like, let's not do that, right? So like if we're sending content and we're sending emails that is helpful, it's convenient, as Megan said, it's laid out in a way that has a strong visual hierarchy, strong design elements, and it's really compelling. Do I need to put a thumbs up, thumbs down at the bottom to know if it was successful? No, I'm gonna see those clicks naturally distort into those elements where I want my subscribers to. So what I don't wanna see is kind of us falling into of your word, new cheat codes of like, yeah, we got the thumbs up, so this email was good. But if you opened it and you didn't click any of the content and you didn't meet the conversion goal, was it successful? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that starts turning into yet another, this is why we can't have nice things moment.
Yeah.
Like we're losing, you know, tracking, because this is why we can't have nice things, because marketers have abused it in the past. So it's like, don't be that person to add in the random thumbs up, thumbs down. I'd be curious to know with anybody who has done that, if they've seen actual engagement from it, because my guess is going to be maybe not, but I am super happy to be proven wrong on that.
I think, frankly, the answer for that, oh, sorry, Stephanie, please go ahead.
No, my POV, and I've brought this up in Email Geek Slack, is I think the engagement's low. And from my standpoint, it kind of falls in the realm of like social icons when they just get thrown in there to say, we threw the social icons in there. It's like, well, you're trying to drive people to social, or are we trying to drive them somewhere specific? And at what point does it just add to that noise? It adds to that clutter and takes away from the actual goal behind the message. So to me, it really falls kind of firmly in that place. And I will not be recommending it as a strategy.
Agreed. I love Scott's term, cheat codes. I tend to use parlor tricks, but you know, that's probably a vestige of my older generation. But to answer the question, or to Megan's point of view, maybe it's low, maybe it's high. To me, it's arbitrary because it goes back to Scott. Whether it's low, whether it's high, is this the engagement that you want, right? And also, what's the value to the customer for that type of click? Nothing. It's purely there for the brand. And frankly, I see these moves with privacy as a move away from, part of a continued move away from brand centricity to customer centricity. And as a strategist, I'm stoked about the doing away of opens tracking. I've heard the word crutch a lot, vanity metric. It's a great leading indicator, but is it really when we question it, right? I mean, it's always been so fraught with false positive, right? One, just because a message shows is open doesn't mean anybody actually took the time to read it, right? A lot of email browser and clients, they'll have the concept of a preview. They'll show you, as you're reading a message, they show you the next messaging queue, which has to open it and fire that opening pixel. So, you know, what has ever been the value of that metric? I think to what Scott mentioned earlier, like publishers, or to those folks or to those business models for whom email or the delivery of email is the product rather than a function of marketing. Yeah, I think it's always had a bit more value, but for everyone else, it's, you know, it hasn't. It's been part of that trend of brand centricity where they're putting brand, product, and price at the center of the narrative rather than the customer or the needs, wants, and the priority of those needs and wants at the center of the story. And, you know, Stephanie and Megan, you both made the point earlier, it's about the experience you deliver, not whether or not somebody opened it. If you focus on creating good content, experiences that are rooted in personalized value and made relevant to each individual, then you don't have to worry about if people are opening your messages or not. They're going to open them.
Well, and on the other side of that, you have to think about the customer behavior in a holistic view, not just from email specifically. So you need to look at what percentage of revenue or whatever your conversion metric is, are you driving in the time period after an email is sent, whether it's open now or not. Because I've done it in my last 2 stops, I've looked at that number, and in both cases, 40% of revenue was driven from non-openers. within a 2-day period after the email was sent. So I'm going, a lot of email can just act as, oh, my bill is due. Let me go pay my bill. I didn't even have to open the email to know. Or in our case, it's, hey, it's up to X dollars off today. They went to the website and they ordered. They didn't open the email. Was the email not successful? It was absolutely successful, because Stephanie, to your point about, and Megan, to your point about, like, you know, what is the getting together with your web team? What are the ultimate conversion metrics you want to have? You all share the same goal. Like my goal to drive revenue is the same goal as the website is to drive revenue. So if we're driving revenue together, I don't care whether they open it or not. The end result is still the same. So if you're not looking at it that way, you're actually cutting off a large percentage of what I would call brand value or halo effect.
Halo effect. That's exactly,
Yes.
yeah. The email halo effect is what I've largely referred to it as. And when I was on the Fortune kind of 500 retailer side with an online and in-store presence, we did not give, like, email got no credit for in-store sales, even though we would see millions. I mean, within hours of emails going out, there was an immediate impact that was residual, you know, for days. So we knew that it was there. We were just really conservative in how we tied it back. But we were able to acknowledge and say, we know that there's an effect when we send out an email, people tell their friends, there's a promotion, a new product, a sale, etc. It does still have that top of mind and brand relevancy impact, which is why we know email's not dead and it's still going to be essential. We just need to do better at actually meeting those needs and wants of our customers and subscribers that Garin mentioned. So it all comes full circle.
So I heard two interesting things here. One, I want to close out the current question. I think the other thing I heard is a perfect segue to the others, but it sounds like we've all agreed that, you know, opens tracking in certain situations has their place, but it seems like we've all agreed that more explicit actions on behalf of customers and prospects are better indicators of program efficacy and success. Do we all kind of shake our heads yes on that one?
Yeah, I agree with that, because I will say the place where I think opens definitely still have a strong indicator of, like, especially because we're now expecting them to be dramatically inflated. If all of a sudden you have a dramatic decline in opens, especially in Gmail, as we know, which can be really sensitive, that's going to be all the more pressing of, like, ooh, something's probably really, really wrong here. And it still is going to be, you know, a main identifier of deliverability and overall program success. It just can't be the only one. But yeah, you don't want to throw it out entirely. You just can't single-handedly rely on them.
Yeah, I believe in the Email Geek Slack, there have been a bunch of betas going around, and it seems the consensus is right now, we don't know until it's in full throttle, but that if it goes to spam, it doesn't prefetch. Which means that if, to Stephanie's point, your opens just tank all of a sudden, then you need to look at deliverability.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Yeah, and the other side of that, the other thing that we've heard is that Apple will recache these images every 24 hours for at least the 3 days. So we won't see just a single open for these messages. That will in fact register as 3 opens at perfectly timed intervals over the next 3 days. So yeah.
They're made up and they don't matter.
There you go. I mean, Scott mentioned Litmus. I think Litmus, and you know, they provide some really great research and analysis here. I think what they've said is that the general percentage of impact on the average list is going to be somewhere between 40 to 46% of those people who are opening on Apple devices. And again, what we're talking about here is the native Apple Mail app on those devices. If you're using the Gmail app, that's not going to be impacted. But if you're popping your Gmail in through the Apple app, that will be impacted. So 40 to 46%.
I think it'll be really interesting also, given that point, like if you use your phone for triage and then you go to your desktop, let's say you're doing everything through Apple Mail, but you're a Gmail house at work and you open it there. I don't know how that's going to work. Is it going to register as total opens, unique? Like this is, we just don't know. Yeah. Like even we're 5 days out and we still don't know enough. We have some betas, we have some ideas, but you have to consider both experiences as well. So, and it's also Apple Mail on all devices. So it's Apple Mail on your phone, Apple Mail on your iPad, and Apple Mail on Mac. So if you are a full Mac user, welcome to the 100% Open Club. So it's going to be interesting.
Great point. So, and because of that, these folks that I'm calling sort of second openers, where they, you know, to your point, they open their email on their phone, that's triage. They may be the more interesting ones. They come back a little later and they open on a tab on their desktop. So for that reason, I'm guessing the total holistic impact will be a little bit less than Litmus's 40 to 46%. But Megan, I'd be curious from a designer and development perspective, like how that means people should maybe focus or refocus their strategy. Should they be now aiming at the lowest common denominator, or should they still be designing kind of optimally, strategically optimal experiences, knowing that the majority of their audience are still going to be able to experience those things?
I think it's worth still, strategizing about how your email looks and optimizing for your audience. I wouldn't have Apple's impending changes, affect it that drastically until we have a better idea of what's going on. Because regardless, people are opening and reading these emails. No matter if we see a 100% open rate from these users or not. So it's just follow the data, follow your engagement, and optimize for that instead a little bit more. And make sure those emails are accessible and readable by your audience, and just continue down that path and test and see what works and what doesn't.
Excellent point. And then before we move to the next question, I think that kind of ties in with the second question we got here in the chat, and that's, will this privacy update help with deliverability? Meaning, because it will look like more people are engaging with your emails, will you be more likely to hit the inbox? I definitely have an opinion on this one, but I'd love to hear from the panel. Stephanie, Scott, and Megan.
No, this is definitely not guaranteed to help you from a deliverability standpoint. And what I certainly like to do is make sure we're not trying to think that we're smarter than the Googles and the Apples of the world. There's very sophisticated folks working behind the scenes at the mail clients and the mailbox providers that are looking at a broad array of signals. So not just opens. Gmail's already doing a lot of what we're seeing Apple just be more transparent about. So some of that's already happening behind the scenes in terms of how opens are already being forced and a little bit misleading. So no, that is not going to have the false positive impact of ensuring that you land in the inbox. You need to make sure your opt-in sources are clean, you're capturing consent, you're sending mail to people that want to receive it, and that it includes content that they're excited to receive as well. So those are still some of those fundamentals we talked about that are going to be the cornerstone of ensuring email success.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Big Brother knows everything we do in Gmail just by actually using the apps. So I don't think they're reliant on an open pixel.
Agreed. Yeah, it was a good question. I think it really points to the sort of still mystification of things like deliverability, right? So, and the sort of standards that drive deliverability or inboxing have kind of shifted over time as well. And I think people still have a bit of a vestigial understanding of how that works. But for those of you who aren't too familiar, it's a very complex and arcane algorithm that combines things like interactivity with quality of data, et cetera, to determine whether or not you get an inbox, such as, how many undeliverable addresses or spam traps were on the list, how many people opened is been part of that algorithm, but obviously we'll see the importance of that decrease very rapidly. But it's more about what's the read time? How long do people spend in the email? How long, how many folks actually take explicit action, such as clicking through and, to landing pages, websites, et cetera. Those are the things that really drive the deliverability. It's always been about the quality of the content, not the envelope itself, right? Which is.
Here's a little tidbit for you, Scott. There's no cheat codes.
Definitely
to the dark
not.
arts of deliverability. I think that's how.
If any, it's like if I had those, I wouldn't be sitting here, and I'd be a hell of a lot richer.
Right.
That might be your next shirt, Stephanie. Send it ain't easy.
I'll hit up Najma. I think Megan's shirt is from there too. We'll give her some.
Trying to turn a click into 15 cents, right? If we're going to keep it straight hip hop. There you go. Fantastic. Cool. So I'd love to transition to our last question. And frankly, I heard a bit of a lead-in from this previous discussion. We talked a bit about the halo effect of email, right? Email's never been an island unto itself. It's maybe been the biggest island. But to me, it's always been the heart of what I call the engagement ecosystem, that where it relies on other touch points, other components, et cetera. So how can other owned channels, such as mobile, web, and social, be combined with email to create more of that engagement ecosystem? What opportunities do we have to do that now that we're seeing these changes hit our industry? Is that upside? Is that challenge? Like, for example, how will the importance of zero-party data change the result of iOS 15, and how can we activate more of our engagement ecosystem to help us with that?
Zero-party data has always been important.
Yeah.
It's always been important. And hell, first-party data has always been important. And I don't think it changes it fundamentally. I think it changes it in terms of, again, the cheat codes are gone. So it's like, oh, we actually have to think about that. We have to invest in those processes. We have to, again, become best friends with the web team so you can build forms and do all that stuff and be more explicit about everything. I think at a higher level, and this speaks to everything, but customer behavior is changing. There's like, I need you to be completely personalized and I need you to give me privacy. And those two things are at odds with each other, right? And so, like, if you look at the betas of mail privacy protection and what they talk about, they're like, oh, they don't get to know that you opened their email, but they don't ever talk about the positives of collecting any data. They just talk about the negatives. And the cynic in me is like, Apple found a solution and we're looking for a problem. So, so how do you do that? And that becomes more than just email. But again, like, zero-party data is super important. And when the third-party cookie goes away, it's more important. So I think email marketers were well positioned to go into it and say, we've already been collecting data for 25 years. Can we actually use it now? And then can you support us in collecting more of it? And I think that's where we really need to take our stand and say, we know our shit, let's get it done.
Yeah.
So the facts haven't changed, but the perspective and the imperative have shifted. Is that
exactly?
Yeah, I would say, it's always been important, but now it's basically becoming paramount and almost a requirement. And I think the paradigm shift here is that we need to get comfortable asking people for this information rather than assuming that we have it or assuming that we have the data that our subscribers want us to have or our customers. So yes, purchase data, great way to leverage zero party already. And we're able to make some really smart segmentation decisions, content decisions, merchandising decisions off of that. But that's because customers are buying on our owned properties and they're just freely giving us that information. Where I'm really interested is capturing that more in the top of the funnel and just being really transparent. Like, we want to provide the best experience for you, whether it be product recommendations, the content that we send you. Here's the information that we feel we need to do that. And just rely on customers giving up the information that they're comfortable with telling us. If they make it clear that, they have a certain skin type or certain hair care needs or dietary restrictions, things like that, so you can provide a more curated experience. I'd be hard pressed to think that people aren't going to want to share that. We just have to stop making those assumptions and actually ask for it.
I agree 100%. Oh, please, Megan, go right ahead.
I think that kind of calls back to what we were talking about and more towards the beginning of our discussion, where our emails are getting more customer focused as opposed to company focused. So we open up that relationship, start talking to people, and then, like getting to know a new friend, you ask information, and if it's relevant, they'll give it to us. If it's not relevant, they won't. And that's just another indicator of how successful we are.
Yeah, Megan, I really like that perspective. And I talk a lot about this, and I think this phrase is relevant to this conversation. We're largely moving towards conversational commerce. And the way that this is happening is it requires us to invite our customers and our subscribers into the conversation. So I think we're realizing as marketers and as brands and companies, sending emails and other marketing communications is no longer just about us. If we make it just about us, then we're going to miss 50%, if not more, of that equation, where our subscribers and our customers are wanting to participate. We want to not be talking at them. We want to have that conversation with them. And it starts by building that relationship, asking curious questions, and then making sure that we're using that data in a responsible way, but in a way that's going to surprise and delight the users on the end of that.
I love that, Stephanie. I talk about that a lot, right? There's a send button as well as a receive function with email. This is a bi-directional avenue of communication. And, we should be inviting our customers to take part in this narrative, to have a share of brand voice. And I agree, it seems like a great time to do that. Scott, it sounded like you had a thought to add.
Oh, I was just going to say it's really hard. Because you have to back it
hard.
up with creative, you have to back it up with dev, you have to, like, every ounce of data you collect, every attribute you collect,
Mhm.
people are going to want to know what you're doing with it and what the benefit is to them.
Yeah.
And so the one thing I've been saying it for like a year now, like everything we talk about is easier said than done, but you kind of have to have that North Star, right? You have to have that what you're going toward, and then like whatever your organization is, iterate and build the ladder up to it. But no, you're not going to solve it overnight. You know, you can go to conferences and go, oh, we have 500 versions of an email, and you go, yeah, you went from 1 to 500, or you went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, and that's really how it is.
So
Yeah.
Stephanie made an interesting point. She's like, it's about being transparent and basically treating it as a value exchange. I will ask you for the value of your data, but in exchange, I will give you things that are most relevant and important to you. That's where I see the biggest challenge. It's easy to grab the data. It's the delivering on the expectation, right? And as a person who works very deeply in personalization strategy every day, Scott, that's where we see things kind of fall down sometimes. You're right. It's like, hey, I want to do this, but I don't have the dev resources. I don't have the creative resources. I don't know the best way to leverage this content in a way that is explicitly for customer benefit and customer value. Right? So what are some easy, oh, go ahead, Stephanie, please.
I have a 3-letter word. It's Megan's favorite when I say it. It's SMS. SMS is, I know we're here to talk about email, but we'd be, remiss really not to consider how email is kind of this gateway into SMS, and SMS as a channel is teaching us, I think, a lot of things that we can learn and therefore apply to email. Email definitely has the opportunity to be bi-directional, but I agree with Scott that it's harder. I know as a consumer and a marketer, I'm not sitting there responding to brand emails. I'm not really hitting that reply button unless I'm really angry about something and hoping it goes to customer support because, damn them. But SMS is really proving that it's easier than ever to actually have real two-way conversations between brands and our customers on the receiving end. And it's so simple to be able to invite keyword replies so folks can say, hey, I want more information about this specific topic or this specific product without the need to build out complicated preference centers. I hate preference centers. They're hard to build. They're hard to manage. We don't leverage them well, and people don't like filling them out. So SMS, I think, is really showing us what's possible there at a really foundational level because it's just words. Yes, you can send images, but you do not need the same level of complexity to deliver an incredible, personalized and engaging experience for the recipient.
100%. Scott, maybe you have some thoughts on SMS, or Megan?
No,
I agree. Again, it's part of the ecosystem. It's about having touch points on the channels where your different customers are already predisposed or most likely to spend their time. Like, I'm in my 40s. I'm more of a website guy. For my children who are in their 20s, it's either on social or it doesn't exist. And for my wife, it's phone or nothing. So rather than forcing people to what might be for them the unnatural function of coming to where your call to action is, again, it's about having those touch points where your audience already naturally lives. It's also about the interactivity of things, right? There are certain calls to actions that are highly appropriate for mobile phones. App download's a great example where that's not a relevant call to action on things like desktop. So it's having the right call to action for the right venue and understanding these things are all part of a single continuum of experience. Because I think as consumers, none of us take this a second to stop and think, I'm on email, now I'm on my phone, and now I'm engaging on a website. For us, it is just that single continuum, and we expect the data and the experience that drives that, or the experience that the data drives to follow us as we kind of meander from channels and devices, et cetera. So I agree with you. I think it's the future that we're in right now is about the marrying and the interactivity of all these things, or the intersectionality, to borrow a very current term of phrase here. I think we're out of time. Matthew, is that, shoot, I could spend all day with the rest of these folks here just dissecting the heck out of everything, but we do know you have a rest of the conference to put on, and we don't want to overimpose on our time limit here.
Yeah, no, you came right up to the time. I was about 3 seconds from popping up when you mentioned my name. So I want to thank you all for participating today, for sharing your insights and sort of thoughts around what is yet to be sort of the unknown, if you will. As all things that are in beta, when they go live, things change. So there is lots of people predicting, maybe accurately, maybe not accurately, where things are going with Mac OS and iOS devices. So, I think sit and wait, watch what happens, and remember that adoption is a long tail curve. So it's not going to be tomorrow 40% of your list opens kind of thing when, well, I guess on the 20th. It's not going to be 40% of your list all of a sudden.
Yeah,
opens.
we originally thought it was going to be today. So I was thinking maybe half our session we go, and now we do this.
Right. Live, coming at you live.
There you go. So again, thank you all. We do have our next session coming up in just a moment with, I could just, we'll move you guys out of the speaking sessions and back to the participants. So
Thanks, folks.
thank you all. And for our next speakers, we have a great session.